Hand of Fate 2 is a dungeon crawling roguelike and third-person action RPG, which really puts an emphasis on player choice, or at least the perception of player choice. What really makes this game, developed by and published by Defiant Development, stand out is its use of deck building to drive its systems and as the manifestation of perceived player choice. I didn't get to spend much time with Hand of Fate when it originally released, but was intrigued by the concept. A tabletop dungeon crawler that used a deck of cards to determine your story, enemy encounters and equipment. It's not that I didn't like the game, but that life just found a way to steal all of my time, and bigger games stole the spotlight. However, as a fan of tabletop fantasy adventures, I was very happy to get the chance to review Hand of Fate 2, and it's not disappointed.
I have made many changes. My game is much improved.
The idea is quite simple, to use a deck of cards to create a unique set of encounters over a story-driven game board to complete each mini-campaign. You have a choice on which cards you want to place in the deck, from enemy or choose your own adventure style encounters, to weapons and armour or a choice of companions. These cards are chosen at the start of each mini-campaign, which has its own unique story and board dynamics. The dealer then throws another set of cards into the deck to create the random game board. Once the dungeon map, it's not really a dungeon map, so I'll call it a card map. Once the card map has been created, you then move your character piece across the cards, revealing them on each turn and dealing with the consequence. You may uncover a blizzard, which hampers your progress or injures you, a trader with whom you can buy and sell weapons, or one of a large number of differing enemy types to defeat. This idea is definitely one of the better ways I've experienced of keeping that feeling of a tabletop fantasy adventure. It feels like you could play this with a friend acting as the dealer over a few evenings, as if it's first and foremost a card game presented with a video game wrapping. During each of the mini campaigns, the card map is randomised, so it can give a unique experience even when playing through the same game. These are greatly varied. In one, I climbed a mountain gaining blessings. In another, searched a forest for a hunted resident, and another saved denizens of a plague-ridden city. Whilst your primary goal is to complete each mini campaign's quest, with some of the cards you reveal helping with this, there are also side quests to complete. These quests, such as companion quests, span the entire playthrough. You can choose which quest to progress based on which card you place in the deck. This provides a good grounding across the entire campaign, rather than the game feeling like a series of vignettes only tied together by the narration of the dealer. As you progress the game, the deck opens up with more cards, giving more choice on the next mini campaign and providing an expansive feel to what you're achieving. If you complete a card quest, you gain its token. This trades in at the end of a run for a new card. Fail the quest, and you can return to it on a different run. Get the mini campaign's gold or silver token, and multiple cards will become available to place in the next deck. Failure isn't always unrewarded, however, and completing one of the side quests whilst failing a mini campaign will still result in a new card. After the first couple of mini campaigns are complete, establishing the basic game mechanics and narrative, the world opens up. The world map, a carved wooden depiction of the playable area, is simple, yet lets you know the type of landscape you'll be playing in. Placed on the map are pins of the available mini campaigns. 3 are revealed at a time, but you can play these games in any order you wish. This really broadens the narrative and makes you feel like you have a choice on where to send your adventurer, or who to tackle next. Whilst the wooden map gives a sense of environment, the titles focus on the characters and stories. Mini campaigns like the Hermit or the Lovers give nothing away except the game will involve them and create some interest and allure. I was definitely drawn to some titles first, and when combined with the environment picked out on the board, my mind ran through hundreds of possible scenarios. The cards themselves are beautifully drawn and, in some cases, animated with exquisite colour. Whilst the majority of them look like they've been inked in black directly onto card, the colour used to present special cards is something else. A more powerful weapon or a burning tree is accentuated with a limited palette of colour, which is simply and effectively animated. These coloured cards are limited whilst building your deck, as they are more powerful than the standard. As described, cards come in a variety of categories. You'll fill your deck mostly with decision-making encounters and equipment, whilst also choosing a companion and picking a small amount of supplies to begin each mini-campaign with. Each card feels different in its use, and I carefully filled my deck based on the little knowledge I had of the coming quests. There are a lot of standout encounters and cards, which made an appearance in almost all of my different builds, and I really enjoyed the change in format that Follow the Goblin and One Drunken Knight provide. To further provide a sense of player choice and skill, some encounter cards ask you to play a variety of games. Dice, roulette, and a pendulum make you feel like you're using your skill rather than relying on luck to achieve the card's goal. Often I found myself berating my poor throw when I could actually have no influence on the outcome of each die, or choosing the wrong spot to stop in a card roulette. This kept me invested on the more mundane cards and got me to pick certain cards, such as arm wrestling, when I knew I needed gold from an easy throw to progress the campaign.
These tokens represent
Whilst the adventuring has elements of resource management, the more intriguing is fame. This is earned in each mini-campaign and is used to further the encounters, or be able to use certain items and equipment. It's an interesting addition to know you have a weapon available to you if only you can rescue someone from a burning building. And fame, as much as the mini-game cards, influences your deck choices. Hand of Fate 2 is almost a game of two halves. First you have the dungeon crawling and deck building aspect, which takes place in the well-rendered and animated dealer's wagon. The second is combat, arena battles that put you in an action role. I felt that the dungeon crawling and deck building elements are executed excellently, but that the combat, while solid, leaves a little to be desired. Combat takes some getting used to. There is more variation than the first game, but different key bindings make your first encounter trial and error if you haven't investigated the options. But it is improved and does feel more fluid. My time with the first game left me feeling a little unimpressed with combat and wanting just the adventuring side, whilst the second doesn't really do that. It may be more akin to the Arkham style combat, moving between a series of attacks to then dodge or block and parry, but it comes naturally and, at first, I never felt overwhelmed with the encounters. I switched to a control pad as the game supports it, and found the transition took a while, a few encounters and several deaths to get used to. Whilst combat feels varied at first, with a good selection of differing enemies to encounter and a large inventory of weapons and fighting styles, which all have strengths and weaknesses, it began to feel repetitive the more I played. Weapons and enemy types can only do so much to combat the attack, dodge, attack, block repetition. This isn't my only complaint however, as also, when in combat, death sometimes feels cheap. You hit the block button and nothing happens, or you execute a dodge on time and still be hit. This does not feel like input lag or poor timing, but perhaps the animation speed to actually undertake the chosen defensive move. It didn't put too much of a dampener on the game, but I felt sore after coming away from a combat encounter with little health. Your chosen companions join you on the battlefield and can be directed to perform special moves to support you. Sometimes, however, they have a mind of their own, and I found that when down to one or two enemies left in the arena, my companion would run in circles not knowing what to do. Either that or they were gloating and celebrating victory early. I'm really enjoying Hand of Fate 2. It's one of the best depictions of a tabletop style fantasy adventure I've found. The deck building and adventuring push me forward, wanting to know what comes next and how I can use my skill to overcome it. The combat pulls me back slightly, and at times I felt like I'd be happy to drop it in favour of more adventuring or simple dice rolls. I can wholly understand its inclusion, and actually using the equipment I have chosen to smash some skeletons to pieces can feel satisfying. I don't think an arbitrary number adds much to the conversation, so I don't have a score. I will state that I think the game is definitely for you if you're a Dungeons & Dragons player or enjoy tabletop and card games. I think there's also something here for players of action-adventure RPGs like The Witcher 3, who want something different, varied, and a challenge. It's a dungeon crawler, card game, and fantasy adventure executed extremely well.